I actually just spoke to the women of Indianapolis for an hour.
Oh, terrific. So, well, I think we should be streaming live to Facebook, and we're recording now. So we'll get in. Thanks for our conversation for today. So to start things off, if anybody's logging in and joining us, my name is Jennifer Hensley. I'm your host. I'm the owner of Playmaker Coaching and Consulting. And welcome to season 2, where we're really talking this month all about how to increase your know, like, and trust, because we know people want to do business with people that they know, they like, and that they trust. So we have Sara Samuels with us today, and she's going to give us some of her insights and her experience in this space. As we get into things, you may have seen, if you registered for the event or the series, that we have an assessment available. So you can take that and get some cues and ideas of, what's 1 or 2 things you might be able to do yourself in this space. So check that out. I'll make sure you've got that in the links in the comments. And as we go today, feel free to add any questions or comments that you might have, because after we do our topic in 10, we'll open it up to any questions for anybody who's live with us. And if you're not live, certainly you can add those to the comments, and we'll make sure to try to get back to you as well, since we know it's a busy time of the year, approaching the end of the awards year. So let's throw it out to get things started today for that topic in 10. Always likes to start things off of how do you like to introduce yourself, Sara? I'm sure most people in the system are familiar with you, but tell us a little bit about how you introduce yourself to people that don't know you.
So then I think one of the things that's important is that in sharing that's changed over time. But now I just share with people that I work with hard workers who are big thinkers, who are making money moves, and help them work towards being inspired to connect intention with actions, with solutions in a tax intelligent manner.
I love that, because, I feel like sometimes you hear all this thing, it's like, oh, there's a person that makes this amount of money, and, it's like, oh, well, who is that, or something, being able to connect more with the type of person they are and those qualities and everything. And it just feels like it's kind of inspiring and motivating to be like, hey, that is something that I want to help other people with, or I know that they want to do that as well.
Well, I think there's value in saying, because we can get caught in a box of, so if you say like, oh, hard workers who are big thinkers who are making major money moves, who do you think of? Like, even just when I say that to you right now, you're thinking of people that you're like, oh, well, what about this person, versus being put in the shoebox of, oh, who needs my help? Mm-hmm. I don't want that. I want them who wants to be able to get the opportunity, using John Gordon's who gets to versus has to.
Yeah, that's great perspective and everything, how we reframe things for ourselves and for the people that we're working with. So when you think about this know, like, trust factor, where do you feel like maybe you've struggled the most with that in your journey?
I don't know exactly where sometimes that comes, but I think it's more know, like, trusting myself is probably more than the other side of that. I think that I've been very lucky that having my JD and entering the financial, there was definitely already some of that inherent trust, just being a professional. So I was able to, I didn't have to necessarily get a ton of designations immediately. I mean, I did get fully licensed, but I didn't have to use it for people to feel like they trusted me. I think inherently a lot of us are extremely likable, but a lot of it was around knowing my value proposition and how to articulate that, and then also knowing myself and trusting myself in the process as well. I think so much, of course, as we all know, is between here and here, and us feeling that confidence, and I'll share just with anyone who's a little bit younger in planning that, when you get out of training, you're already 95% more well-versed in financial planning than even a trader. And I work with a lot of guys in finance, and I'll be like, yeah, your lane. You can talk commodities all day long, but they don't teach financial planning on the regular. And so I get to, kind of talk about that now. And that's also about verbiage. So, in really making that authentic so that you can be know, like, trust, and also unique, because there's a lot of similarity. What verbiage, what things are you doing to differentiate yourself from every other person? And that makes you more likable, makes you more knowledgeable, and also makes you more trusted.
So as you talked about finding your kind of your voice around your value proposition and how you position yourself, because people trusted you, you had the credibility there, but it's, how do you articulate that? What was helpful for you? How did you navigate that and get more clarity on what that message was and being able to communicate that confidently?
Well, one is just more at bats, right? So I'm a huge fan of Angela Duckworth, and she says, grit is the combination of perseverance and passion. More at bats allows you more time to be able to do this. So I think activity is key, and having a wide swath of joint work. And I always say that joint work there's 3 different ones. There's local, national, and home office. And I think that there's a lot of value in hearing other people's value proposition and hearing them like, what drives with you? Because again, this is a lot like comedy or jazz. There's not really all that much new language. It's just making it yourself and making it meaningful. And then I also got coaching really early on. I started working with a coach probably 2.5 years in, because I was really good at the science. I had lots and lots of activity, but I was having a lot of problems implementing. And then it just started, I integrated enough of the basic awesome red letter language, which allowed me to be present and then gave me the time to be able to start working on what really felt most me.
I love that. And there's so many things like, I can't remember who said it recently, but I was just on something and they were talking about music and like there's really only 7 notes or something. And like, but how much difference there can be that's been created within that scale. And that's
bluegrass, it starts with bluegrass and jazz, and everything else is just a combination thereof.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it. And I know when I was recently working with my client Lauren, like talking about their value proposition, a lot of people start off, what I hear is, I don't know what makes me different and stuff. So we talk a lot of times with their clients too, and I'm sure you've done this over getting feedback from them over the years of, what's added value for you, and listening to their comments and where are they showing up and saying, oh, this was really helpful. I can remember even talking with an advisor years back, and we'd only done a fact finder, similar to you do probably with your clients, and they're like, this was really helpful. And I'm like, I haven't done anything yet, but we discount ourselves sometimes and where we add that value and what is different for other people. Have you found that in your experience?
Oh yeah, and I mean, what you're saying is resonating wholeheartedly. There's a few things that just to pull out of there too, is that, one, you're right, we don't give ourselves enough credit. 2 is, I think that again, with, being able to build out that time and being able to have enough time to be able to say, well, what's going well, what isn't. And I think there needs to be, I think that one of the things I did was really a lot of think time and working both. Yet we work in the business and it's a sprint-a-thon and all of that, but you need to work on the business and actually build that out as well, because it is important. And also just about who you are. Who do you want to portray to your clients? And I also think there's tons of value in being very vulnerable and asking for feedback at all stages of the client relationship. I'm dealing with a little bit of this. I'm dealing with a little bit of that right now, where I was really lucky. I got referred to we're going through some transition in our business right now. And I'm really lucky. I had a client that's 10 years in. She referred me to her siblings, and we are taking on a new AWMA lead advisor. Someone's coming off, and it's just a difficult transition. And she was kind enough, because she understood I could take it, that, hey, my siblings are feeling a little nervous. And like, it hurt, right? Like red heat goes up your face, right? But that's because I've been vulnerable and asked for that feedback. Clients now feel they can do so. And so you really have to be able to be okay with both from mentors or clients with saying, actually, I really honestly want to know so I can do better by you and bring more value versus less. And then the only thing is then you have to do it.
Yeah. That's like the thing with the value proposition, right?
Right.
If you different than what you're going to stand for, but you don't deliver it, it doesn't mean
totally. Talk the talk, walk the walk.
Right. And that makes me think too, from the point of client experience. I just saw an example of this the other day, and I'm trying to think about it. Of somebody was saying, about how somebody made a mistake and it was awful and stuff, but then they called them. They actually got a personal call from, it was like American Airlines or something. They got a personal call and said, I'm so sorry for your experience, on this flight, and how can I make it up for you? And the whole fact that, they reached out to them, cared about their experience and how they tried to resolve it, more than made up for the fact that experience, even that negative experience had happened, by how you respond to that adversity.
Right. And I think it's always like, and look, I mean, I did that this morning. I actually have to send them out after we talk, but I'm sending out an email. We're sending out a little gift, like a little, we want you to feel comforted around this. And I mean, and again, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like giftology and gifting differently and thinking differently. But also sending out an email and saying, hey, I have plenty, calendar's full next week, but I will find time for meeting with them. Right. So I want to calm them, but I have to answer it today. Because I wait and procrastinate, then it becomes a thing. Then I'm thinking, like, now I've really lost the opportunity to nip it in the bud and make them feel welcome and needed and valued. So I'll be getting those emails out to all of them, to copy on my team. They're sending out a quick gift this morning and saying, hey, we can find any time this week or early next week. Let's level set. Let's make sure you feel that we're offering you the service that we implied that we would from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that,
and also taking blame in a good way, like, hey, you're right, this has been a hard transition and thank you for your patience and we really appreciate you.
Yeah, and that timeliness of it, that's so critical, because we react so instantaneously to things in this world, and we expect everybody else to be able to respond that same urgency.
I used to wait till Monday to like do decline calls and stuff, and now I'm like, let me just get it out of the way, right? I mean, I never thought I'd care so much about people's blood work when I got into finance, but nonetheless, but I mean, I think that just getting ahead of it. And the same thing about that, know, like, trust, they will trust you more if you're honest with them and say, hey, NM's the Harvard of insurance companies. The hardest part is getting in, and I'm not going to guarantee that you can do so. So couching things and actually tell people worst case scenario versus best, but say, hey, we just want you to understand that this is what's possible. But we're trying to actually make this also really meaningful for you.
Yeah, those are great advice, especially to newer advisors sometimes trying to build their business. I know I was talking to Thomas, one of my clients, this past week, and had some feedback from his clients who said, they really appreciated that transparency of, even though he's fairly new in the business, that he never tries to fake that he doesn't know that he knows the answer, that he's very transparent of like, I don't know it, I'll go find it and bring it back to you. And they love that about him, that it really gives him more credit, even as somebody, pretty new in the business, to be able to work with higher caliber, more sophisticated.
It's never the crime, it's always the cover up, right?
So yeah, no, I mean, a little bit more about how are things different for you?
I'm sorry, go ahead, say again.
Sorry, tell us a little bit more about how things are different. I mean, you've been on this journey. It sounds like you've discovered more of yourself and how you authentically show up and do that to create these deeper connections and everything. How do you feel like things have maybe shifted over the years in terms of really showing up as yourself and knowing yourself and being able to communicate that to
others? Tremendously. And a lot of that is through coaching and work and getting exposure and going to advanced planning schools and working with people like you and working a lot on what is resonating. And what I found is, look, one, I'm from Southern California. I do say stoked. I do say dope. I reference music. I'm a huge sports fan. I will say all that stuff, and like, I will be like Drake and be like, hey, started from the bottom, now we're here. Or like 99 problems and ain't one, right? But you have to use stuff that's for me, right? So if you're Mr. Sports guy and you're using the CrossFit, like, great. If you like using a house analogy, great. But don't try to, if that doesn't work for you, don't do it. It's going to come off fake. It just will. So the more I leaned into the fact that I found that for me, I am very aspirational and relatable. That is where I serve my clients best. I'm relate to where they're from. I'm a child single mom. I had families. I've seen both welfare and I've seen $1 million. Okay. And so I'm able to relate, but I always want them to say this is aspirational. So I show up looking like this because I want them to know they're holding their money with me. And I get it. We can be casual or whatever. But for me, I want to show up in how I want them to be perceiving what this relationship is like. I want them to know that we are offering Ritz-Carlton service, top drawer, and the Inspire part became a part of that. So I leaped onto, for me at work, Financial Inspirer. So follow me on Instagram at Financial Inspirer. My sister's in social media and she's like, you're not verified. I'm like, oh, eventually, hopefully. So follow me on that. Also, my website is actually financialinspirer.com. And guess what? It redirects to my NM page. And because I can now use that, I'm so behind it, right? Doesn't mean that's my DBA. That's going to be something entirely different. But there's a moniker that fits for me. Now, some people are not inspiring. That's okay. Do you? Maybe you're the analytical type. You're really great at being able to tell every detail. Then you tell clients, I'm really great at not just painting the level picture, but being able to tell you the nitty gritty, but also find out how they like things, right? So if this is inspirational stuff doesn't jive, I can work real hard with the 50 million and just be, here's the numbers. I mean, you've seen my photo. I mean, and then you meet me and you're like, Sarah's a goofball, but I want them like, what, right? But I want them to know when they see that photo on my webpage and whatever, they're getting, a badass lady, but not just a lady baser, just an awesome advisor who's going to do wonderful work.
Yeah.
So I'm showing your energy speaks before you do. So does your persona.
That's great. I've just been reading Fascinate. I don't know if you've read that, but they talk all about that of, are you an innovator, or are you separating yourself in terms of, I think it's like urgency or trust, or which piece is it that you really first and foremost kind of your brand represents. So you made me think about that when I was there, and it has a lot of great tips if anybody's interested in a read. I know everybody's always reading lots of great books.
Yes, please. I will. Yes, please and thank you. The other thing too, I think, which is interesting, it just made me think about when you said that, is around asking clients like how they like to receive information too, and just also too, so that can be a part of it. And again, your brand is you. People buy us. They like that we work with. I mean, come on, how many times have people been like, oh yeah, I think they work with Northwestern Mutual. I want people to say, I know I work with Sara Samuels. Right? And so that, because what I don't, look, one of the first questions I ask is, what's your experience with financial planning? There's a few reasons I ask that. One, I want to know, right? But two, I want to know if it happens all the time. Like, who gets through an awesome fact finder at the end? You're like, cool. So I'm with Northwestern Mutual, blah, blah, blah. Because maybe they don't even realize, I think I have a policy, or with Northwestern Mutual, like, great. You're in great hands. So I want to discover that stuff early, but I'm pretty sure that my clients, if you ask them, they know they work with Sara Samuels. And, and that's just also, be able to create that and make yourself a little unique for why are you different from every other person. Well, that could be the smallest touch. It could be, I'm just extremely caring and my clients feel loved. It could be, I put together the best PX and PPA plans. It could be, I know everything about their benefits inside and out and blah, blah, blah. It could be, I have helped them alleviate tax situations. And those are, of course, just examples, but whatever that is, and just really holding that true. Nick Murray says it best, we are more important than doctors, because doctors solve your health issues and you're still going to die. We create multi-generational solutions. And there's very few people, and we get to empower communities, and it starts with one person, this is Gerard Hempstead language, one person, one family, one business at a time. Again, half the things I say are me just making stuff that I've heard every other place. And that's the other thing. Be like, not just our stuff though, but go like podcasts like The Perfect RIA or the Kitch's stuff. Michael Kitch's stuff is one of my favorite. Get Nick Murray's, either get the books, absolutely the books, get on the newsletters, follow other people, be able to be a connoisseur, so you don't want to just sound like you're just, and nothing's incredible, but that you're not just that you actually know about what's going on. And get excited, and also like read really cool stuff like the tax-free retirement or how the Rockefellers. There's just so much out there, and start being able to offer that to your clients too.
Yeah.
So like, I just think that there's just so many different ways that we get to do things so uniquely and awesomely. And that feeds right back to your first question, Jennifer, about the know, like, and trust.
Yeah, and everybody has that story. I think a lot of times early on, they're like, well, yeah, what makes me different? There's 30 people in my office, like even within Northwestern Mutual, like, why am I different? But to what you were just talking about, like, everybody has their story. their thing that they can lean into, that they can really own, that is what makes them different.
I mean, realistically, people not just buy their why, they're buying our why too. And I'm not saying you have to like, tell your whole story, but the more that they can feel that they're related. So I tell people, look, I was a client first, and I think that, and again, that's not for everybody, for those of you who were, it's really great to be, I've been on both sides of the table, and I'm still trying my best with my clients. So feel free to ask me what I'm doing, what my best clients are doing. I want you to understand how because look, let's be honest, we're usually the best clients. We are doing the most premium. We are doing the most investments. We're doing all the things we said. And if we can paint that picture for why we're doing it for our clients, they can buy into it too. And I always joke, I'm a little bit like you've already probably found, I'm a little bit like TiVo, like pause me, rewind me. It's hard to fast forward me. Like, my clients love that kind of stuff, but I want them to know like this is truly about them. But if you give me permission to hold you accountable to what's important, back to the know, like, and trust, if you give me permission, then I'm going to do so, because this is your plan. I'm going to care, but you have to care more.
So you've given already, I think, a lot of tips that are practical that our audience could take and implement. But if you were to say, here's one thing I really think that in the next couple of weeks you could hone in on, be a great step forward for them, what would that be?
So let me say 3 things. Okay. So first, I would say recognizing that this is about high activity with a caveat. So for you, this is for you newer advisors. Set expectations really early on for your time and for your clients. As a dance recital, we're the only ones that know the steps. Okay. So, look, we have 60 hours during the week. We're not country doctors. We don't need to go see our clients. Like, set the expectations very early on for what that relationship looks like, and also your schedule. And put everything on your calendar, and take still care of yourself. Like, our health is our wealth. As financial advisors, the number one reason financial advisors take disability is mental health. So take care of yourself, meditation and exercise. That's important. Rhinoceros Success talks about still being that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I would really look at your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram, and what are you coming to table with? What are you sharing? Are you sharing a combination of some great personal stuff? Is it all NM branded stuff? Are you doing some of your own content? So do a combination thereof and really start thinking ahead. You can schedule this stuff really far out, and take control of this, because guess what? This is your business. Nobody will care as much as you do, and you better start thinking like that. And third, get buy-in, not just from clients, but your team. Help them paint a vision of what's possible and what's out there, and treat them like really incredible parts of your family. Don't call them your staff. And again, same if it's just set. Like, these are people who want buy-in. So if you have teams, and you haven't done a fact finder close, blah, blah, blah with them, I would encourage that highly. If you're recruiting or marketing, like, go back to your people and say, what are we really doing? So I think that there's just some things, and really taking control and thinking like a business, but also as a marketer. Because that is a huge part. And I know we talked the marketing playbook about that. And write your know, like, and trust list. Have a COI one, have a client one. Who is your ambassadors? So in Giftology, right, they talk about, I think Rob talked about it last, about who are your client ambassadors. If you could replicate 10 of them, not what are necessarily, yes, definitely numbers, but more importantly, and this is actually, we started talking about this at the beginning, what are their traits? What are the traits that you want to replicate? They care a ton, hard workers, they think big, they want to do really great things about legacy. What are those? And then share that. Hey, we're wanting to build 10 more people like you because of who you are, not because of what you make. Because by the way, the money will be a byproduct and you'll be just fine.
Those are great insights, great advice to people. And I think when I think about where you started with that too, with the setting expectations for the relationships, if we have clear expectations, then it prevents so many of those issues down the lines too, because you're on the same factor of like, how do you like to be communicated, or how often are you going to hear from me? How are we going to engage? What are you expecting out of a relationship and everything? You're addressing so much of that on the outset, since we know communication is one of those biggest reasons that people end up leaving, an advisor or transferring, is because they feel like they're not being communicated with enough. So we discount that sometimes too and think, oh, well, they're just going to think it's one more email. They don't want to hear from me. But showing up in those places like you were talking about, of how you show up on social, how you engage with your clients is really important to that. So we have time for just a couple questions. See if anything comes in, you can add that to the chat and we'll address that. As those are coming in, I know, one of the most frequent questions that I often hear is just, how do I get started with this? Is this something that somebody can help me with? And I know that's certainly something that I help a lot of my clients with. Yes, there are pieces to what Sara said about, nobody's going to care as much as you. But if you bring in your team or you bring in a trusted partner, they can really get to know your brand and help you with articulating that and help you with some of the execution. So it doesn't have to be all of it.
I think a great question. This is something you might want to ask yourself, and it's super oddball, but I'm going through a branding strategy and I thought it was the best question. So if you could describe your practice as a car right now, what would it be down to the detail of make, model, year, color, tires, everything, and why? And then what car would you like that to be in 3 years? And I'd be interested for people, again, because this is about for the car. Like I said, I sell DI by saying I'm a Ferrari, not a Kia. And I use those two cars very particularly. This is so much word about wordplay. I mean, this is Lipscomb, like so much these little, because Ferrari, what a Ferrari is.
What that represents.
Oh my gosh. And a Kia, like, I don't want to say Hyundai because I feel bad because I know like I had a Hyundai for years and it was awesome. But a Kia is kind of like, Kia, right? So like even that wordplay of like, I'm a Ferrari, I'm not a Kia, like these small things. Well, our business should be a Ferrari, not a Kia. Right? And so, but maybe you're a Kia, right? And that's okay. But how do we get ourselves to a Ferrari?
Yeah. We've done that with icons before. Like, what would be the 3 icons you would choose to represent your brand? And what one?
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
So, yeah, but it
duly noted.
Thinking creatively of like, what would I want people to think of, or what represents what I'm trying to communicate, and hopefully what they're experiencing as well.
And baby steps. Like, you don't have to take on a whole branding strategy. Like, start small. Like, hey, I'm going to start sharing. They say that one of the biggest things is sharing like a post a day, and it could just be like of this gorgeous background that I get in Florida right now, like, or whatever. So, just make it personal, make it you, make it authentic, and make it fun. This career changed my life. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better daughter, a better sister. And I'm going to get really emotional because we get to really do incredible things and help people live their best lives. And John McTeague, my managing partner, 8 years said it best. You get to do well by doing good. So keep doing well by doing good.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm crying over that. My goodness.
It all comes back, right? You put it out there and yeah, it will come back to you. So I have one question in here that we want to ask you. And somebody says, can you tell us anything about annual meeting? Let anything out of the gate.
So I can't reveal anything, but we will be having announcements soon. And I think it's going to be just off the chain. So, as the chair this year, yes, again, we're virtual. And the reason for that is because annual meeting is about inclusivity, not exclusivity. And so we couldn't have everyone. We didn't want to do that. But it's going to be super fantastic. And we're so excited and, honored and continue to be honored to maintain the culture and the value of what annual meeting brings.
Well, I'm sure everybody's looking forward to all the details. It's always fun when it comes out.
Awesome.
So we have time for one more question. And if we didn't get to questions, if there are more, like I said, you can add those into the chat on Facebook and the group, and we'll be sure to try to follow up with those, or join our Idea Slam next Thursday at the same time. We'll be talking more about how do you take some of these ideas today and actually start to implement them in your practice. So bring your team, send them, we'll really roll up our sleeves and start to go into it. So I do see one last thing, and that was around Clubhouse. And I know you've been on Clubhouse a little bit. Do you want to share a little bit about, it sounds like about how do you see that fitting in? Like, where does that, how do you use that when you think about all the different places that you could have a presence? What does that one represent, or what's the space?
I don't know yet. It's wild, wild west. I mean, I'm just trying some things out, and it's not I'm not giving financial advice. This is all mindset stuff. I'm having some clients. I have a client who owns a company that talks about burnout. So we're going to do one on corporate burnout. I had Ashley Martin, who's a 4th generation Northwestern Mutual advisor, talk about living with joy. I mean, I've had stuff on how I'm not, this is kind of more Kristen Andre, I'm not for everyone and neither are you, right? So I don't know. I'm just like, same thing on Instagram for sure. I'm just trying a few things out. We'll see. But, I'm not selling. So that's the other thing. Be really careful about like what your platforms are and be mindful of like, are you selling or are you actually serving? And so think about it from that side of things too.
Yeah, great advice. So as we wrap things up today and everything, one of the things we'd love to do is to be able to support a organization that you are fond of or is important to you. So what organization can we help support from as a token of our appreciation today?
Oh, Red Cross.
Terrific. They always do great work.
Incredible.
And thank you again, Sarah, for joining us and all your insights.
My
Resources
pleasure.
for this week. For anybody who's interested, we do have, let me see if I can share this with you real quick. This resource that's 20 ways to improve your know, like, and trust. I'm sure it's not exactly everything that Sarah talked about. We could probably add 20 more things to it as well. But hopefully it would give you, if you go through that assessment, maybe a couple ideas on what you could do. So if you're interested in that, be sure to either DM me or share your email address and we'll make sure to get that over to you. And like I said, next Thursday during the Idea Slam, we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll actually talk about what's your first step, brainstorm some ideas or start to pen to paper and helping you get that implemented in your practice.
I have to pop off. I have a fact finder and I see they already joined my Zoom. But it was such a pleasure. And for everybody out there, I'm licensed in 40 states and 6 countries. I work with a lot of people in tech. I work with a lot of people with variable income and I work with a lot of business owners all across the country. So feel free to reach out.
We'll definitely be doing so. Thanks again, Sarah. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.